I haven't had anybody come on that like has been in writing rooms and done comedy writing. What can you just break down a little bit, like in layman terms or whatever, like as you're coming in as a new comedy writer, what are you doing?
Mhm.
Like, are you sort of a fly on the wall? Are you in charge of I just have no concept of what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically it's joke writing and sketch writing for sketch variety, right? Like those two shows were sketch variety. They weren't really narrative based. So it's a kind of a different muscle. So in sketch writing and joke writing, we're basically writing monologue jokes, but you're trying to write it in the voice of the comic you're working for.
Yeah.
Like in the case of New Negroes, um, I was writing for Baron Vaughn and Open Mike Eagle, two guys I had known for years at that point, and Kevin Avery, another great writer, another dude who like had the world of patience with me because it was my first job and I thought I'd do everything. I was like, oh, I'm funny. But it's like, you got to be mindful of these jokes aren't your jokes. And again, it's that thing you were saying of like, you might see what makes it funny, but that's you. And so you got to like take your ego out of it and look for what the person who you're working for wants.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing about New Negroes was Baron Vaughn was a huge influence for me as a comedian. So it was really easy to write for him. And Kevin Avery is a jokes assassin, and he was really patient with me and giving me the freedom to kind of be experimental and be kind of a snot-nosed kid and just, be like, but it's funnier this way. And he would just have that patience with me. Like, he really taught me how to be in a writer's room and like really was really patient and methodical with me.
So
And
what is
like,
the like schedule like for that? Because I just hear like the blanket term like in the writers' room and like, are
yeah.
you? What are the hours? I've heard it can be like crazy hours, and I mean, what are sort of the expectations?
Well, expectations are usually we get an assignment. They'll be like, we're looking for sketches or a monologue. So like in New Negroes, we were writing monologues and interstitials in between each comic. So we would like write monologues based off the topics Baron and Open Mic wanted to cover. And then we would have to make those jokes funny, but also have a poignant part at the very end of the script. And it was pretty challenging, like figuring out how to like talk about like trauma and unpack like concepts like being woke and all that stuff, which aren't funny at their face value, but then making sure that they're funny, finding a way for Baron to do it, and also for Mike to do it. And Mike, although he's not a comic, does have like really good, strong comedic instincts.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to like, find ways to balance both of the two. And it's a group effort. Also, there was a really great writer like the other writer in the room. I should know her name. Oh, she's gonna kill me for blanking on her name. Uh, you know you are if you're watching this. She's gonna fucking kill me if she sees this. I'm gonna remember it as soon as this podcast is over. But she also was like very mindful of like making sure we were talking the right things, and she was a writer's assistant who like was getting a lot of good stuff in as well. So it's a very group project thing, which for stand-ups can kind of feel a little weird and a little ego bruising because I know that's how I felt at certain times, and I was frustrated because as a stand-up, you're like, just say the joke. If it works, it doesn't work, and then you can move on.
Yeah,
But
it's
when
like
you're writing for
batting practice.
TV, yeah, when you're writing for TV, it's the stakes are a little higher, and it's like we're only going to be able to shoot this once or twice, so we got to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more thought into the joke. And then with Sarah's show, we were trying to write for sketches and segments. So segments that would be producing comedy. The one segment that I got on that I was the most proud of is this segment about a game of force to decide which religion is right. And which I think so it would be Sarah who represented atheists. She'd be playing a game of force against a bunch of other religious figures, and it came out really good in my opinion. Like I know it was like my idea and stuff, but it came out really good. Sarah was obviously amazing in it. All the religious leaders were bad at basketball, so it was great. And like for such a kind of prickly subject, I felt like we kind of captured what the show was about, which is, you know, finding ways for people from different backgrounds to come together and have just a cool moment. And it kind of like was a good vehicle to, you know, figure out how to talk about kind of touchy subjects. And that's the kind of stuff Sarah was looking for. And like I would pitch jokes in her monologues all the time, and she would take a lot of them. But then certain jokes she'd be like, "That's funny," but I wouldn't say that. And she would be like, "Put that in your stand-up." And that was what was great about working with Sarah, because Sarah understood where I was coming from, but she'd be like, that wouldn't work for me, but I think you could pull that off.
Yeah.
She's got a great ear for that shit. And, you know, she was so fucking supportive and just like, honestly, the best boss I've ever had. Like,
was that in LA too?
That was in LA.
Okay.
That was in LA. So I'm still getting to how I got to New York. In 2019, I had written on this other show that was scripted, and that show was completely like, that's a totally different game when you're writing for scripted. Scripted is more like story. How do we break the story and then make the dialogue in the story funny?
Yeah, punching up.
And that punching up and stuff like that. And that, depending on the show, is very different. Like the show that I was writing for in early 2019 was all about it was a multicam. And multicam is joke.
Yeah.
Like you're not really going for high level joke writing. You're just going for jokes. Like I think you're trying to get like 10 jokes a page, maybe even more than that. And it's all about like it's like basically writing a play.
Yeah.
And you know, like I have no problem with multicam. I'd write for a multicam again if it like suited me. But I like more like single cam stuff, because there you're more focused on the story and the joke's not of importance, or you can build to a really great joke that lands in the bottom of the second act or top of the third act, or even at the end of the episode. And you can do that too in single cam, but just there feels a little bit more like space to be experimental in single cam, which is probably why a lot of people are trying to do that. And multicam is just multicam is harder, I would say, for sure.
What can you explain the difference? I've heard the explanation before, but I'm blanking on it right now. I'm sure somebody listening to doesn't know, so I'm gonna blame it on them.
A multicam is, think of shows like Big Bang Theory, How I Met Your Mother. They're like multiple cameras in like a set, no exterior shots. It's all like interior shots of like bedrooms, house, like living room.
Traditional
bar.
sitcom.
Yeah, like Friends,
yeah.
Seinfeld. Those are multicams. Single cams are more like, trying to think of a good single cam. Like, this isn't a comedy. Well, I mean, sometimes it's really fun. Like Sopranos. It's like that shooting style. Like it's one single camera shot on the person. Maybe you'll get dual coverage depending on who you are, or depending on the kind of show you're shooting. But it's usually one camera. Breaking Bad's another great example of a single cam. And multicam, the jokes and the dialogue is more snappy, more punchy. That's why like a lot of stand-ups are expected to be really good at single cam, because you're basically delivering a line, like you do a punchline. And there's a lot of great stand-ups who transition into single cam. Roseanne, Seinfeld. But if you can, single cam is hard. I mean, multicam is hard.
Yeah.
It's super hard to be funny.